Justin with Braveheart Training Academy, and today we are just simply going to talk about loading and unloading. All right, a really simple thing, but ultimately it's something that people have a hard time doing at first. And so I wanted to make this video so that you could at least see what's going on, and then when you get the opportunity to start practicing this skill. Ultimately, there is a specific way that you want to do this and the way you want to set this up, okay? So right now I have my XD 9mm right here in a holster, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take it out. I'm going to go ahead and show you that it's unloaded. I'm going to lock the slide to the rear. I'm going to visually and physically check, and I'm just going to go ahead and set this down right here, okay? So typically when we are doing our loading and unloading, it's going to be in a range setting, or if you are carrying your firearm because you're legally allowed to in your state, as we are now here in New Jersey, able to apply for that permit to carry. You might be loading every day, putting your firearm on you. So what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to find the safe place to do your loading. At the range, it's going to be at your ready table, typically on the firing line where your muzzle is pointing downrange. So in this case, this direction is going to be that. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pick this firearm up off the table, and ultimately this is how you want to be able to pick it up. So if it's in a safe, or if you're on the range and it's on your ready line, you're going to pick it up. You're going to make sure you're indexing here with your trigger finger, and the ejection port is up, and you can definitely see that this is unloaded. People to your side can see it's unloaded. And so what we want to do first is we want to orient the firearm in a direction where we can keep that muzzle parallel to the ground, especially when you're at a range. You do not want to be pointing in weird directions where if that firearm were to go off for any weird reason where you were being negligent, you wouldn't be shooting the ground in front of you or just shooting around into the ceiling or into the air going a mile away from you. So keeping it parallel to the deck, we're going to be pointing in the same direction. Now there is workspace, you can turn it to the side, but when you turn it to the side, you don't want to end up doing this. You still want to try to keep it parallel to the deck for the reasons I stated just before. So let's do it right here for right now, just for the purposes of really getting into the basics of loading. You're going to take your magazine once you're here with your muzzle pointed and kept in the safe direction. So even if I'm turning side to side, I'm keeping it pointed downrange or in that safe direction. You're going to take your magazine and you're going to index. You don't ultimately need to necessarily feel the bullet, but you want to index because this is going to denote the direction you're going to insert the magazine. And you're going to take that magazine, making sure that it's pointed in the right direction, and you're going to insert with some force to make sure that the magazine seats properly. And in this case, I can see, especially with this dummy round being this yellow color, I can see that my magazine is in the proper position. I can give it a little tug. Okay, that's the first part of the load. The second part, in this case, we're going to go ahead and grab the slide and send it home. You can hit the slide release here as well, but it is good to practice this skill, especially if you're new. Grabbing, you're going to push with the firing hand, pull with your support hand, and then release, okay? That's going to drive the firearm a little bit away from you and make sure that you're getting enough energy into the slide so that that round seats nicely into the chamber, closing the breech so that your firearm is loaded and in the safest condition being loaded. In the case of this XD 9mm here, we do have a chamber indicator showing that there is a round in the chamber. You can do a chamber check. You want to be careful you don't put your hand in front of the muzzle, and you can go ahead and check. It's also done like this, and that way we can see that there is a round in the chamber. We also have a trigger indicator showing that the trigger is set and ready to go. Now that we're loaded, we definitely want to keep this point in the safe direction, but that's why we want to start there, right? So being loaded, we can go ahead and do whatever we're going to do in terms of whatever skill that we're practicing or whatever we're trying to accomplish at the range, right? Now when we want to unload, it's basically a type of a reversal, but we do want to go ahead and start with the magazine just like we started with the magazine before. And the main reason is we want to remove the source of ammunition first. That way if any mistakes are made while we're trying to rack the slide, we're not putting rounds back into the chamber and getting confused about the condition of our firearm, because rule number one is treat every firearm as if it were loaded, but also know its condition. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this point in the safe direction. Now, because I need to turn my hand slightly, I'm going to go ahead and maybe turn my body a little bit, but not changing the muzzle where that is pointed, keeping that pointed downrange. I'm going to set my thumb up so I can easily depress the magazine release. I'm going to catch this magazine. Now if I kept it here, just straight up and down, which is very much good to go, I would just make sure I caught it here. Now if it were to fall to the ground, I still have a loaded firearm in my hand with 1 round in the chamber. I don't want to be bending down and picking that up. So it's okay that it fell. Until you get comfortable with these skills, the first thing you're going to do, even if your magazine falls, is you're going to go ahead and give it a nice wrap, making sure that your round that was in the chamber is now ejected. Again, the same skill that we used to load it, I used to eject that round. And I was a little violent with it to make sure that that came out. Now, you can do it a couple more times to make sure it's empty. And then ultimately, now you wanted to engage your slide catch and pull back to the rear again. Same motion you did to load before. Now that it's completely unloaded, we're going to go ahead and look visually and check the chamber. I can put my finger in here and make sure that it's empty. And then now I know that this firearm is unloaded. I'm going to go and set it down on the table, and that's unloaded. And everybody else can see that it's unloaded. So again, I'm going to do it one more time quickly for you. Go through it so we can see it. I have my magazine here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my firearm, pointing it in a safe direction, which in this case is downrange this way. I'm going to keep my finger straight off the trigger. Hand is going to be in a nice high position so that once I have it loaded, I'm ready to do whatever skill that I'm practicing at the range. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my magazine. I'm going to go ahead and insert firmly, maybe give it a tug, check on top and make sure everything looks good before I seat that round into the chamber. Next step is I'm going to grab here up top. Like I said, you can go ahead and depress that slide release, but we're going to grab really hard up top, push, pull, and release. Now we have a round in the chamber. We've made sure that we gave it enough force by letting the slide do the action for us, and the round has been put in the chamber, breech is closed. Now that it's loaded, I can go ahead and do whatever I came to do. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm all done for the day. Let's say I didn't empty the magazine. First step to unload is to go ahead and turn my hand here, making sure the muzzle's pointing in the safe direction. We're going to go and press that magazine release, grabbing our magazine. This time I didn't drop it. We're going to put it down. Now we're going to give it a nice wrap. The round did come out, but just in case, we'll wrap it again. And then when we're ready, we're going to press our slide catch here, push pull like we did before, check the chamber, and set her down. And that's loading and unloading. This is a skill that you can definitely practice at home. I would get really comfortable with this because it's not just about being precise and making sure that you do it perfectly just because. Ultimately, the better you are at this, the more you're going to be safe. The more you're going to show people at the range that you're being safe and that you are communicating safety. The other thing is, this is something that if you do it correctly from the beginning and you always do it the same way, that muscle memory will keep you safer. If you are lazy, if you are being negligent, and you're being in any way careless about this type of process, that's going to translate into other aspects of shooting firearms, and it's just not a good thing to do. We'll keep it high level, we'll have the high standards, and we'll get the best outcomes. If you have any questions, reach out.